All right, let's see if that's. All right, we're going to do our best here. The guy. Or gal. Sorry about that. Way too long. Okay, thank you. That's all right. I've been standing all day. So I've got a lot of slides tonight. I thought I had like 20 slides and I ended up with 46. So we've got a lot of material to cover. So I'll go as quick as or as slow as you guys want me to do. So and I'm going to approach this from a very general, broad view. You don't want to get in trouble making claims about COVID and treatment and so forth. So I've got everything referenced here. So you can go to the primary literature and get that. I wish I was that smart, right? And had all the time and research to do all that, but got people a lot smarter than me looking into this stuff. So I'm just going to, my job was to condense it all and say, okay, what from a practical standpoint, what can we do to improve our immune system and not spend, thousands and tens of thousands of dollars doing it. So there's some very practical things that we can do. The one thing I didn't include here, but I'll just talk about at the end, is I've got a patient case that I want to walk through, and I'll tell you what I did with that particular patient, some of the morbidities that he had, and so forth. Seen it work in action, personally, essentially. So I'm doing this so we're live streaming it, so this is where we are. We really exist. A little bit about me. Some of this or half this already. So I went to UW-Madison Pharmacy School, graduated in 2003. I've been working retail pharmacy since 2003. Started out at Walgreens. From there, I worked at EO Pharmacy in Glendale for a number of years. Actually, in that pharmacy for a few years, and then joined my wife Monica and my father-in-law John here in about officially full-time probably 2010 or so. This location's been here since I want to say 2008. Was this location like in Fort Worth? It was, yeah. We had two MD customized compound pharmacies. You have the one on Port Road and the one here. And I want to say around maybe 2010 we consolidated up there. Maybe 2009.
So this is the main location.
Yeah, the main and only location. There still is a yield pharmacy up in Cedarville. I've always had a big interest in vitamin supplements. You get that from my personal story. I had a really bad acid reflux in pharmacy school. And that led me to looking into medical treatments for that. And come up with a protocol that has been very successful. We still help the patients to this day. And not with their acids, just improve their digestion. Products, essentially. Small business owner since 2000, father of 4 kids, so that's really keeps me busy. And Monica. And I use them as guinea pigs for some of my experiments, so, for full disclosure reasons. And I just have a passion for helping patients with medication problems, vitamin supplement recommendation. So that's me in a nutshell. I love fishing and woodworking. Again, some more for YouTube, of course, but my medical disclaimer. I'm not telling you to stop medication tonight and just jump at all these supplements and think that this is going to be the best thing for the protocol. It's not saying this is just information purposes only. Of course, if you got questions afterwards, start off the report, we can talk one-on-one about things. I don't want to throw this to the whole world. What am I now? COVID infections are not new, so that's something that we, want to put in perspective. That we may think COVID-19 is the first time. Yes, of course, this particular virus is, but there's been other SARS viruses around. So we've got the one in 2002. We've got
So does each one have a number?
just a different name. Well, there's already been mutations already identified with COVID-19, and so they're being given insurance.
So this like version we're talking about now, is that like 20 or is that still like?
I don't know who gets to name those things, but I'm sure they'll come up. Who knows? Another name. And then direct cause of death is typically severe pneumonia, so bacterial pneumonia. So when you get into some of these other protocols that are out there, you can track COVID-19 virus, or let's just take COVID-19 out of the picture. Let's just go back 2 years ago. People would catch influenza, right? You get the normal flu shot, influenza A, influenza B, and they go to the hospital with this respiratory distress. You would still get a potential cytokine storm, and then that patient, you have all this fluid, right? Basically, if you think about your lungs just filling up with fluid, it's just a great opportunity for bacteria to hang out in that fluid, and then you would die secondary to bacterial pneumonia. Yeah, you went into the hospital initially for a viral infection that precipitated into a bacterial infection in the lungs. So you can still see that with COVID-19 infections. So something we don't want to forget about when we're looking at this from a big picture standpoint. And of course, obviously, the death rate of COVID-19 is much greater than any other viral infection prior to this, and so we still have to keep in mind. The CDC in 2010 to 2019 there was an estimated, some of the wide range here, but 23,000 and 91,000 deaths occurred just from the influenza virus during that time frame. So and we gotta understand that, this is scary, or can be scary from the perspective, of course. But we have different ways to treat this virus, and the virus next year, the one after that, and so on and so forth. So just want to make sure patients understand. So again, we're going to spend the next probably 45 minutes or so just kind of running through in my opinion, the best supplements, the better supplements to take. Again, we could probably spend hours talking. I think my top 5 that I like. There's probably 20 of them out there that have some benefit, but I wanted to look at ones that were affordable, practical, were evidence-based, so they were studied and researched on viruses in general. Things like for the most part. So what is the best supplement you can get for your immune system? That can be my last supplement, but I put in my list. Stay tuned. So the first one we're going to talk about, though, is melatonin. So melatonin is a potential adjunct treatment for COVID-19 or any, I would argue, any viral infection. So let's look at why that is. So one thing we got to get out of our mind on this information from this thing. So you want to look these things up, like those or then YouTube, so you can freeze frame this and pull up the references. And even email you all the slides to qualify using content. So that's where this is coming from. If you look closely enough, this is coming from researchers, I know with China too. This is actually published out there somewhere, but in any regard. So we're looking at melatonin. Not just for sleep. Yeah, exactly. So got to get that out of our mind right away. So I was at a seminar in Chicago that we talked about circadian rhythm for 2 days. And what I learned from that seminar about melatonin specifically is that we don't really know exactly for 100% certainty, is melatonin released helps us fall asleep and stay asleep, whereas melatonin actually is released as a byproduct of sleep. So there's still some debate about that. Like, it's kind of what came first. Did the melatonin come around and then we got sleepy, or we got sleepy and because of that melatonin is the byproduct of sleep? We still don't know the answer to that, really. So yeah, it's a different way of looking at it, right? I always thought melatonin was used to help us sleep. That is true to some extent, of course. We'll kind of unravel just that, but I'm just going to read this off. So evidence suggests that excessive inflammation, oxidation, and exaggerated immune response likely contributes to viral pathology. So this can possibly lead to cytokine storm. Kind of hear about that on the TV, where you get this huge just burst of inflammation because of a viral infection. And subsequent progression causes actually all of that fluid, causes tissue injury, lung injury, ALI, acute respiratory distress. So that's where this ARDS comes from, acute respiratory distress syndrome. And then potentially or often can lead to death too. So that's when you get into real trouble. So that would suggest that melatonin can help slow that process down. Basically, your lungs don't have fluid, or your lungs basically breaking apart, cells breaking apart. Melatonin is a well-known anti-inflammatory antioxidant molecule, protected against ALI, ARDS, or light viral and other pathogens. So even again outside of the world of COVID-19, melatonin has been shown to be beneficial just in any, I should say any, but in more than just COVID, upper respiratory infections. So this is something to keep in mind. If you get sick down the road, you just get a regular cold, might not be a bad idea to add some melatonin. That's a great question. Does anybody get the regular cold anymore? I would say yes, right? But do we ever hear about it, or are there any car accidents or deaths on the road anymore? Does anyone die from heart disease anymore? I don't. Yeah. Apparently not, but it doesn't actually do it, right? I'm just kidding. Melatonin can possibly be effective in critical care patients by reducing vessel permeability. So we don't want our vessels to be permeable. We want them to be nice and intact and have integrity. Also helps by reducing anxiety, sedation, so it does help us sleep. If we sleep better, we're better rested. I always think of sleep as just as important, but that's the part of the day that's rest and repair. So we have to sleep to get better, right? We all know that. Melatonin has a high safety profile. There's significant data showing that melatonin limits virus-related diseases. So again, very safe product to take. We all generally know melatonin's out there. Yes, we always think of it as a sleep aid, but now start thinking of melatonin as anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. Additional experiments, so you're going to see this with almost every one of the products that we're doing. We need more information. Additional experiments, clinical studies are required to prove speculation. So part of it, yes, is speculation. Some of these mechanisms have been identified though, but to really understand it, we've got to. So in general, melatonin, so immune system antioxidant, think of it that way. It's produced by the pineal gland, and our whole body makes this, right? But have melatonin, so earlier somewhere. So lower melatonin, never recommend anything crazy, but all I have right now are 3 milligram capsules, but so you can take it as a supplement, of course. But we have a slide here until see works. It's derived synthetically. Chemicals put it together. Yeah, so it's
natural.
It's bioidentical, meaning it's the same structure that our own body makes, but yeah, it's chemical synthesized. I'll show you that next week. But there are some cofactors that help melatonin work better. So if you don't know this about me already, I'm always thinking of synergistic products. Okay, so if I can take one thing to move whatever else that I'm taking, or 2 birds with one stone, maybe if I can take one supplement to help with this issue and that issue, better that's going to be better. So things like niacin, iron, folate, zinc. I put an asterisk by B6 and show that why that is. magnesium, and then vitamin C. So vitamin C is another one. We get the quercetin in a few minutes. Vitamin C, you'll see is synergistic with most everything we know. So B6 is important for, not that this chemistry is all very important, but the point I want to make with this is your body starts off with 5-HTP and basically tryptophan. So when you eat turkey, right, I was thinking of the Thanksgiving meal, there's a lot of tryptophan in turkey, brings the 5-HTP, give yourself some B6, and ultimately your body's going to convert that down to melatonin. You get sleepy, you play some football, and take a long nap. So we've all been there, which a lot of been there. But we need B6 for our own bodies to produce melatonin and also need serotonin. That's again something we keep in mind. So just to, I'm going to take melatonin exogenously, it's a capsule, great, but that's maximize my own body producing its own melatonin. Let's take a little bit more B6, maybe 10 milligrams, 50 milligrams I'd recommend. So that's important to understand. Plus, we get some more serotonin in the whole process, which, serotonin is kind of the happy neurotransmitter of the body. It's very good. Melatonin targets. So we always think of melatonin acting in the brain, allowing us to get sleepy and fall asleep. But there's other target tissues that melatonin interfaces with. So the brain is talked about, but in the GI tract, with melatonin receptors and adrenal glands. This work is really interesting. So macrophages, we can follow this biochemistry with the HMB G1 inhibition, but macrophages are specific white blood cell that are they're not specific in that macrophages just go throughout the body and eat up and digest it. Eat up things that really shouldn't be there, help digest material that looks foreign that shouldn't be around. So melatonin can help regulate these white blood cells to do a better job. T cells in one tissue, that's where it's getting this benefit from this acute respiratory distress. And then liver and heart tissues through nerve regulation. So nerve 2 is a good thing, providing protection. And so we see with complications post-COVID infection, there's issues coming up with these patients having liver issues and cardiac issues. Melatonin might help those patients if they're having those post-infection issues. Two slides. Yeah. Anyway. So bottom line, melatonin is not just for sleep. So that's something you want to take home about melatonin. You do want to take it still at bedtime. So here's my slide on dosing. So dosing is quite a range. So 0.3 to 3, so that's what this is a 3 milligram. If you look at some of the studies that are out there, there are very few. You can see 10 to 20 milligrams taken. Much larger dosing than what we would typically use for helping us with sleep. So keep that in mind too. So I've been encouraging patients to take a minimum of 10 milligrams for viral protection. So get a right number down, that's in 10 milligrams.
So is that something you'll get? Is there another one that's bigger?
Yeah, we sell a 10 and a 20 milligram. I just happen to be out tonight.
So that if we order it,
Kelly can set up. Yeah, for sure. So because it causes this sleepiness effect, but we still want to take dose melatonin, of course, at bedtime or close to it. So 30 minutes. So it depends on the patient too. Some patients will respond to melatonin. They won't actually get sleepy or feel sleepy for up to 4 hours potentially. So that's where it's kind of back to that chicken and the egg. Does sleep cause melatonin to be released, or is melatonin released and then that helps us sleep? Delivery systems. What's that?
I said it helps.
It helps, yeah, for sure. There's obviously oral capsules, we talked about that already. There's sublingual and slow release. There is a slow release product that we can sell into just for outside of viral infection, just to have them sleep. It's a 5 milligram slow release, so that patient that, I'm getting a little off topic here, but when you get into slow release, a patient that maybe having trouble, not so much falling asleep, but staying asleep, that slow release formulation can spray into the tongue is good because it's very effective. But I would argue, though, typically those sprays they're not to that 10 milligram dose. Usually the spray that we sell is a milligram per spray, something on it. Yeah. So, good for sleep, but not so much. Yeah, you're kind of missing the problem. Yeah. Nice. I think that'll update my slide. Side effects there are, so I'm going to go through each one of the supplements and talk about side effects. Of course, you want to be, just because something's natural, right, doesn't mean that it's without any downside. So we're going to keep that in mind too, of course. So morning sedation, I don't know if I'm going to a side effect or an effect. It's worse, but it's dramatic. Here's something though, it decreases seizure threshold in children potentially. So that's something we want to keep. I give all my kids melatonin, but seizure issues, so something you want to keep in mind. And then hypothermia theoretically can lower your body temperature, right? So that's the issue. But again, just have that awareness. I want to go on exercise. Maybe if you notice you're getting cold all of a sudden, you're taking 10 or 20 milligrams, possibly that might be quercetin. Changing gears here. Quercetin is basically a plant extract, polyphenol. I think that's fairly important. Quercetin is a natural product that's found in fruits, vegetables, leaf seeds, grains, so on and so forth. The red onions in their kale. You can quercetin and so another reason to eat fruits and vegetables. Right? It's got a bitter flavor. Using back your supplements, beverages, and so on and so forth. But good for viral protection. Especially adding it to vitamin C. So here's again, you've got melatonin, vitamin C being synergistic, and you've got quercetin, vitamin C. I don't have just slides exclusively tonight on vitamin C, but I'll say it now that taking vitamin C, not a bad idea to take it. And the dosing does range 500 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, 3,000, 5,000. I'm not going to get into all that tonight, otherwise it'll be here for hours. But take home point on this is quercetin. So again, there's a study here. Let's have a look at that a little more. So it's well known that this flavonoid has antiviral properties. Been investigated in numerous studies. So again, this isn't anything new. This study I was looked at last year, but studies prior to that just investigating quercetin's mechanism of action. Evidence that vitamin C and quercetin with co-mixers exerts synergistic antiviral action due to overlapping antiviral and modulator and other more than properties. Ascorbic acid has the capacity to recycle quercetin. So quercetin gets in there and it acts as an antioxidant. So that itself gets oxidized and gets recharged as an antioxidant again, all this electron transfer stuff. Vitamin C can recharge the quercetin. Basically, so it's safe, it's cost effective, so on and so forth. Which can have sound biological rationale should be prioritized for experimental use in the current context of global health. Okay. So again, more studies are needed for quercetin. Something that again, if you have obviously a infection, it's out of control. It might be too late for quercetin in my book, but it's something for if you have your mild case of it, or even just like an antiviral infection, right? So again, if you're outside of COVID, coming down with the flu or just a cold, a bad idea, of course. Works as a free radical. We haven't heard that already. Inhibits platelet aggregation, so we have to be a little bit careful with that. So if somebody's on a blood thinner, you don't want to look at them or something. So talk to your doctor before looking at something. Inhibits lipid peroxidation, which is a good thing. It inhibits pro-inflammatory mediators such as lipoxygenase. So not necessarily important, but it's doing a lot of different steps chemically. So it has this anti-inflammatory effect. C has activity on the arachidonic acid pathway. So if you, again, not to get too far off track, but with the arachidonic acid pathway, you can actually get things that are pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. So it's kind of you have exactly that teeter-totter balance. So that's where your NSAIDs, your ibuprofen, is inhibiting pro-inflammatory molecules. So quercetin works in that similar biochemical chain in the bodies. And that's very important with this stuff, even though it's a natural product, it's very well studied, all things considered, its mechanism of how it's working in the bodies. So there's in vitro models of H1N1. If you remember, that was it back in 2009, 2010? Or 9, yeah. I remember actually doing vaccinations with the H1N1 vaccine. Not many, I did a few, I know that. And H3N2 influenza infection. So quercetin demonstrated reduced cytopathic effect 48 hours post-infection. So it's one of those things where you spike a fever, and all of a sudden you feel this fever coming on, you take your temperature, that might be a bad idea. You probably start taking quercetin. Inhibiting viral entry. So here's where it gets really interesting for me in this that you heard out here. This effect was observed when quercetin was administered during viral entry. So again, you're first getting those symptoms as a patient. This effect was maximal with quercetin pre-treatment, and this effect was dependent on quercetin's ability to bind to receptor proteins. So it's really keeping that virus from spreading. No, I would take it more as active treatment. There's other. I would take. We'll get to. Actually, I'm not going to talk about beta glycans tonight, but beta glycans is a product that we sell called Holding from Molecular. That'd be something I would take as a preventative. Something that would allow my white blood cells to be more. I use the word robust. Or allow my white blood cells to be charged with the material that they need to fight an infection. You think, oh, well, not all white blood cells are created equal. You really are. You could have healthy white blood cells that are ready to fight an infection, and then white blood cells that really don't have that power to really attack the virus and the bacteria and so forth. So, right, let's talk to some patients. Again, we all know this intuitively. Some patients are sicker than others and so forth. Our immune systems are in different levels of capacity. So with quercetin, quercetin is one of those things that's more for active infection, where something like beta glycans are more for supercharging or getting all the material ready for your white blood cells to fight infection. So, safety profile and dosing of quercetin. It says oral supplementation of quercetin up to 1 gram per day, 3 months. Has shown no significant adverse effects. So, yeah, they do have a prophylactic. So there is a prophylactic dose here of 250 to 500 milligrams twice a day, but this wouldn't be my first choice as preventative maintenance. I'll get to another product that I like more preventative maintenance. Mild cases, same dosing, 250 to 500 milligrams twice a day, and then in severe cases, we're looking at 500 milligrams twice a day. As I mentioned already, take this with vitamin C, 500 milligrams at least twice a day. In the severe cases, the literature is saying take 1 to 3 grams of vitamin C. Side effects you can see with quercetin, headaches, and temporary peripheral paresthesia, so tingling in the hands and feet kind of thing. Your skin tingling, your hands might feel a little bit numb, but just temporary. Switch gears here. So curcumin, from there to right, that's I absolutely want this spot. The more I learn about curcuminoids, anyone with like leaky gut syndrome, autoimmune disease, any kind of IBS, GI irritation, outside of viral protection, there's a million other reasons. There's a dozen other reasons in my book for curcumin use in patients. I personally think they not all the time, but on and off, especially if it works as a good anti-inflammatory, just for like joint knee pain and everything. So curcumin, polyphenolic compound, there's I believe something around I can't remember 80 different curcuminoids that are out there. So we're learning more and more about supplement. It has this ability to inhibit the entry of viruses into cells, has the ability of inhibiting encapsulation of the virus and viral proteases, and then can modulate various cell signaling pathways. So curcumin is working on so many different fronts. So curcumin would be one of the things I would take more prophylactic because, right, we don't know when we're going to come up against this virus. But if I have something in my system that inhibits the entry of the virus entering a healthy cell, that would,
Was it acute or
that would be good for you. We do, yeah. So this would be one of my go-to products usually. So the human modulates. Again, this is not very important, but I put it on the intercellular signaling, which is essential for efficient virus replication, such as downregulation of NF-kappa B. So NF-kappa B is what I call the master switch for inflammation. That's just but it's a good way to think about it. If you can turn off NF-kappa B, you can essentially turn off inflammation. And maybe it's not a switch, maybe it's a dimmer switch, but you can at least turn it down so you don't get this huge flood of inflammation. So again, we're thinking of this acute respiratory failure. If I can take a product like this that is generally recognized as safe, so it doesn't go to a supplement, as long as it's a good quality one, I'm not going to get all that to want to make sure supplements are taking are what they say they are. But as long as they're taking a good quality turmeric, we can see that this inflammation is turned down. So that's important. Effects cellular post-transcriptional and post-translational modifications are talking about DNA replication, mRNA, RNA, all that kind of stuff. Hence, limiting viral growth by interfering with crucial steps in the replication cycle. So when we're talking about viral loads, mild cases versus severe cases, again, trying to stack the cards in our favor. This would be one. Again, is it something I want to take prophylactically? Not a bad choice, but certainly would I want to have that around in my medicine cabinet? Could I start putting down with a fever tomorrow? Yes, absolutely. The human treatment can modify the structure of surface protein viruses that are blocking entry of the virus in the human cells. That's another important under human. So there's different, again, there's multiple different pathways that this humans working. I love that it's, okay, oh crap, the virus is multiplied. It's about 2 days in, 3 days into the infection already. You don't want crap. It's a human out here and potentially get that virus involved all over your body, keep it from injuring these cells. Basically, not that helps with antibody. You can't get into our cells and the virus just float around and eventually get rid of it and just pick it up. I see that the study I was looking at. I'm going to go through all of this, but the point here on this picture, they just trying to put this together, but just all the different areas in the biochemistry of the virus can get into our cells and cause us inflammation. Step in and help it perform the spectrum. Switching gears to vitamin D. Oh no, it's got out of sync. Pretend you didn't see that. We're gonna go to licorice. It's like, wait, I'm not there yet. So licorice root, less rice, has been shown to inhibit viral absorption and penetration. So again, viruses around year, let's get something to kind of keep it from affecting more healthy cells in our lung tissue and so forth. It's been shown to be effective both during and after viral infection period. So even after the fever's gone, we've gone through that 14-day quarantine, we've stayed home, so on and so forth. Might not be a bed and keep this around. If you take it, it's been shown to interfere with viral replication in what works in night cell pathogenic effects of many respiratory viruses. So again, outside of COVID, the general flu is still out there, right? Gone away, just some general colds. The thing about licorice root though, dose and I apologize. I'm going to rush this afternoon, but I think we'll still grab. It is. I would argue though you're probably not going to get enough of the active compound. Like this licorice root has 35 milligrams, just one drop. Dosing that here, just has one drop daily. So it's licorice root, 35 milligrams. That's also used for emergency too. So the issue with licorice root is it inhibits or slows down our bodies from metabolizing cortisol. So go back to circadian rhythms. When we wake up in the morning or an hour before we wake up, our cortisol rises. It's the highest point of the day, and then as our cortisol drops off, basically gets down to zero. It should be getting down close to zero when you go to sleep at night. And so the problem with licorice root is it inhibits the breakdown of cortisol in our body. If you take that late at night, good luck getting to bed. You're going to struggle with it potentially. So you always want to take licorice root in the morning. You get up, or an hour after you get up, and then into your second dose. And don't be surprised if you have more energy if you're taking licorice root, because it's keeping your cortisol around. So and again, cortisol is a double-edged sword, right? We don't want to get too much cortisol, but we still need cortisol for your body.
You get in trouble if your cortisol is.
Yeah, if you're anxious and have anxiety and you're ready to wired and tired, I would recommend licorice root.
What do you take it?
Tincture, yeah, and just squirt it in the mouth. Yeah. It's deep. I want to get yeah, that's different. Yeah. You want that. You want to cure the yeah. But then the other issue with licorice root is it causes sodium retention. So you gotta be careful with somebody that's high blood pressure. That's the other issue with sodium retention. You can go back to quercetin, melatonin. Yeah. So it's not a one size, right? It's not a one size fits all with these supplements. You have to be aware of what are those other issues that the patient have, comorbidities, and what other health conditions are they working through. Not everyone's going to be eligible essentially for licorice root. Good question. Now the hormone D. So going back to the one thing, this is my guy right here. I've done a whole talk on vitamin D, and I call it hormone D, right? So I even stopped putting it in my slides as vitamin D. So you need to say hormone D, I have something about vitamin D. Really access a hormone. What's a hormone? Maybe we should talk about that. So the definition of a vitamin, that's used in some kind of biochemical reaction in the body that is consumed. It's a cofactor. Where vitamin D, hormone D, has a receptor that is then sending a message to do something else further down the road, essentially. So it's important to understand that. So hormone D's mechanism of action for reducing viral infection improves our physical barrier, improves tight junctions, especially in our GI tract, gap junctions, and clear junctions. So it can tighten up the fortress. It also improves cellular natural immunity. So just again, those macrophages, those non-specific white blood cells that are floating around, helps to improve that, and then also our adaptive immune system. So when our immune system is trying to figure out this new virus that's never seen before, vitamin D can come in hands, that ability to start getting into T cells and B cells and memory cells and so on. Hormone D, vitamin D, enhance the increased synthesis of proteins that kill viruses directly. So use gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Works by weakening cell membranes of bacteria. Works by eliminating endotoxin. Works by many more functions. So vitamin D has all these different layers of functionality. Kind of like that picture that we saw with curcumin. It has so many different pathways that it's helping to modulate to improve our immune system. There's a study done with vitamin D supplementation as low as 400 IUs can help to decrease viral infection. Just the reference there. When we look at, again, vitamin D, there's so many different levels of vitamin D for viral. More on innate immunity, so vitamin D reduces cytokine release. Okay, one back to that cytokine storm. Reduces cytokine release excess. So vitamin D can reduce pro-inflammatory Th1 cytokines, specifically TNF, alpha, interferon gamma. So there's all these signaling molecules, we'll call them, that vitamin D can help down-regulate. We don't get that cytokine. Or we, again, go back to that. Instead of the light switch, the dial, turning that down. Helpful. And then vitamin D, this is an interesting fact too, has a positive effect on gene expression. So it enhances genes related to glutathione production. So glutathione produced in our liver, vitamin D can help regulate that. And I always think of glutathione as kind of a super antioxidant of the liver. I always say, this is just my opinion. I always think of this 5 times more potent as vitamin C. Glutathione is a great antioxidant to help, again, liver metabolism. Just works as a great antioxidant. So even cell glutathione by itself. A precursor to glutathione is N-acetylcysteine, which is another. I'm not talking about that. Well, no, I am, but I don't have slides on it. But N-acetylcysteine amino acid is a precursor for producing glutathione in the body. It's a little bit more expensive to take pure glutathione, but if you want to just kind of cut to the chase, instead of taking N-acetylcysteine, take glutathione. But again, I think of it as a synergistic level. Somebody can come to the counter with a bottle of glutathione. I'm going to recommend or suggest taking some vitamin D or ask them, hey, are you on vitamin D? Because that'll give you more bang for your buck with that glutathione. Always try to tie things together. And I just do a couple of things that, as we started out this discussion tonight, is there still a flu out there? Or did that just completely disappear? But seasonal flu effects, right? We're in the middle of Wisconsin, in the middle of winter. Regular flu is hanging out there, I guarantee it. Target ages of less than 5. We can go, all these things are more, right? There's nothing on the side we want to know. Or patients greater than 65. More, for some reason, for Caucasians, more so nursing home residents, chronic lung and heart disease, history of smoking, and lives. You got to look at those patients and population and say, okay, am I in one of those categories? Because if I am, I want to do more things to protect myself and improve my immune system against any viral infection. And then, again, peak rates are in the winter and towards the end of winter. When you look at the regular flu and tracking it in the state of Wisconsin, really it's not so much right November and December when we're pushing the flu shots. It's when our bodies are beat down, our vitamin D levels get really low by the end of winter. We're just tired, fatigued, generally speaking. And that's when the regular flu will kick in. So I'm curious as to what our COVID numbers are going to be in 2 months. End of February, early March. My prediction is probably go back down. Or reiterate. I think my argument is more that our vitamin D levels are dropping. The next one says high latitude countries of less UVB, so we're not getting vitamin D synthesized in our skin. Low temperatures and low relative humidity our flu virus can survive. So there's that part of it too. So our bodies aren't falling apart, but then you got our bodies, our immune systems nosediving, so to speak. We've got environments where the virus can upregulate. So we know vitamin D. So there's a whole study here that is it says high dose vitamin D administered. This is ventilated ICU patients. This is a double-blind randomized controlled trial. This was back in 2016. The study was done in Atlanta, Georgia. I believe it was in 2011, 2014. And They were taking patients that were hospitalized due to viral infection, and they split them up into 3 groups. And there's 2 treatment groups. One got, I believe it was 100,000 units of vitamin D for 3 days. The other group got, I believe it was 250,000 units, 3 to 5 days. And the story was that in the study it looked at, it showed better or less hospitalization, shorter hospitalization stay for that group that got the highest doses. But this is not very important. This is just one study, of course, but again, something to consider. What's your vitamin D level? Some of the control group. So the control group had a vitamin D level of between 20 and 22. And then the patients that received 250,000 units had a vitamin D level of 45. These are their hospital stays. They had 36 days on average, with 250,000 units of vitamin D3 had a 25-day stay. And then, I got my numbers right now. And then the last group got, their vitamin D level was on average 55 units. And they got 500,000 units of vitamin D. And their hospital length was only 18 days. So I'd rather stay in the hospital for only 18 days compared to the group that got nothing. The control group was in the for over a month. So.
Was it often the same for respiratory?
Yeah, respiratory. Yeah, the acute respiratory distress syndrome. Yeah, yeah.
Is that sort of reflected in the stats that come out of Italy for their vitamin D levels and outcomes? Or?
I'm not sure I didn't look at that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did match up to that. Yeah. This is impressive to me. So when I look at this data, I want a vitamin D level of above 50. This was a 50 plus or minus 14, for the standard deviation. So I'm shooting to get my patients levels up to at least, I'd say 40 at the bottom end, 60 at the top end. When you look at patients that get the right amount of sunlight every day and measure their levels, they're between 40 and 60. So again, I'm going to try to mimic nature as best I can. I'm not going to try to outsmart nature here. So let's just look at patients that get their normal amounts of vitamin D. So recommendations: take vitamin D3 to raise your blood level to, I said 40 to 50. With the slide, I'll raise that up to 40 to 60. Let's say, give you a little bit bigger than what we're shooting for. Most patients will need to take at least 10,000 IUs per day for 30 days. You'll probably bump that down to 5,000. And that's pertaining to patients here in Wisconsin that I see, and I see their lab results come in and so forth. If you're going to take that, obviously at mega high dosing that was talked about in the study here, you're going to take 500,000. You're going to want to go to a doctor, right? Because these patients are hospitals. So I'm not recommending you taking mega dosing. This is, all things considered, relatively safe to take 5 to 10,000 times. Caution: do not take added calcium. So if you're going to take all that vitamin D, you can absorb too much calcium and then upset your calcium phosphorus balance, your calcium magnesium balance. So again, you've got to be careful of just taking vitamin D. But you do want to take and this goes for all vitamin D recommendations. Of course, you want to make sure you're taking vitamin K2 to enhance calcium transfer to bone tissue. So we know in general that taking vitamin D will help with calcium absorption from the gut into our bloodstream. Then once that calcium is in our bloodstream, it doesn't really know where to go. And so K2 basically helps hand deliver that calcium to our bone tissue. We don't have that K2 around that added calcium that we just absorb. It ends up basically depositing in our cardiovascular system, our arteries, where we don't want it. And then magnesium is needed to help activate hormone D, vitamin D. I can come back and forth. Sorry, it's confusing. Magnesium is needed to activate enzymes in the liver, kidneys, and other tissues that in turn helps to activate vitamin D. You know, vitamin D has to go through the liver to get hydroxylated, and then it has to go through the kidneys to get hydroxylated, meaning that the liver has to activate the first step of activation, and the second step of activation is going to be tissues. So the kidneys and liver are not working the way they should. I have a hard time activating that. Most recently with other patients might need different doses. So again, how is it going to take? So there's actually two synergistic products to take with vitamin D. One is going to be the vitamin K2, and the second one's going to be magnesium. So if you're going to take vitamin D, you really want to take out D3, K2, magnesium. In magnesium, there's a wide range of dosing here, so it's patient specific, but anywhere from 2 to 6 milligrams per day. That's total daily calcium, or I'm sorry, total daily magnesium requirements within your diet. So, from a supplement standpoint, most patients, in my experience, be between, I would say, 100 and 400 milligrams specifically. If you're eating a good diet, you'll be quite a bit for yes, magnesium. All right, final thoughts of vitamin D. Yes, but vitamin D deficiency is common in adults. Low levels are associated with low food. So actually, vitamin going back to the melatonin and serotonin, B6, vitamin D actually has food through the low levels are associated with suboptimal metabolic syndrome. So we see that patients that used to do diabetic training, low vitamin D levels, we recommend back to the physicians vitamin D supplement insulin response. Vitamin D inhibits IL-2, possible clinical applications for arthritis, musculoskeletal pain, lower back pain, so actually calculate inflammatory response. Another good reason to take some vitamin D, or at least to have it assessed. Some of those issues. Vitamin D is a competitive agent, osteoporosis, so yeah, that's something history so far. Dad had prostate cancer. Like, even outside of that, I think taking vitamin D, but all the more reason for me to take vitamin D. And then low vitamin D is linked to high blood pressure, so that's another thing too. Is that again, something that's hypertensive. You want to say, okay, well, let's assess that patient's vitamin D level. Maybe they're hypertensive because the vitamin D is really low. That might be an easy thing, right? Then again, I'm always trying to think, okay, if they're hypertensive because of low vitamin D, and we identify that, then we also want to consider magnesium. Low magnesium has been correlated with active hypertension. So there's another, yeah. So that's being on both, again, all the more reason to put, you're going to take vitamin D, take magnesium, especially if you have issues with blood pressure. So again, something we maybe correlate together, right? And I'm not saying correlation is causation, of course, but again, something to look into.
How much magnesium do you have? Is there
Yeah, I want to go over 400 milligrams of magnesium supplementation a day because you can start pumping up your calcium magnesium balance. It'll get rid of it, which is a good thing, right? If you get too much magnesium too, you get loose stools, diarrhea, that's kind of side, especially if you're just taking like magnesium citrate. We do vitamin D testing here for $75 and we have a discount. Here, again, I would say generally speaking though, go get your vitamin D tested by your doctor. Get covered by insurance, and you know, assess with that. Not you better take more pharmacy. Yes, about an hour of being random. Like this.
good information?
Yeah.
I'll give you my
I'm gonna stop my recording quick and then those of people that are signed in, thank you for attending the live stream.